Hey guys, I'm fixing my background. Hey guys, so we have a really cool, are we on the right view here, Ethan? We got a really cool live event here right now, and really excited to have Becca Madigan from Price Labs she's going to do a little presentation. Then we're going to have a Q&A. So guys, bring your questions, just drop them in the comments and we'll get them answered after Becca finishes her presentation. But I'm really excited to get started on this. So Becca, if you want to say hello and go ahead and share your screen. Floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. Here, I'll share my screen. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate taking time out of your Wednesday afternoon. My name is Becca. I'm a solutions consultant with Price Labs. I've been with the team for a little over a year now. I was actually a property manager here in Charleston, South Carolina, before joining the Price Labs team. So I was using Price Labs in my day-to-day operations. Now I help people sort of all over the US, all over the world, make sure that they're using Price Labs in, the most optimal way for their goals in business. Today, I heard that a lot of the followers for the short-term shop actually currently use Price Labs. So didn't want to focus on like a demo. I actually wanted to give you all a little bit more information on what's new in the product in case you're maybe not aware of some of the updates that we've had, and then also go over some advanced strategies that might be helpful. I'm hearing in a lot of markets there's a bit of a maybe softening in demand or a lot more supply, and hopefully some of these strategies can help you with your own portfolios. Feel free to ask questions throughout. That's what I'm here for. I'm more than happy to help there. But cool. So just to get started, for anybody who might not know who we are, Price Labs was founded in 2014 in Chicago, and we have since expanded globally. So this is wrong. We're pricing over 150 to maybe 170,000 properties every single day worldwide. No matter where you are, generally speaking, there's enough data around you for us to price your listings properly. So even if you're in a very rural area, we can definitely work with you. Our headquarters are still in Chicago. Like I said, I'm based out of Charleston, but I've got team members all over the world. We work with everybody from, somebody who might have just their first Airbnb to large enterprise level vacation rental companies, service apartments, villas, chalets, small hotels, RV parks, you name it. We're super customizable. So whatever your strategy may be, we can work with you. We offer three main tools, right? So dynamic pricing is really what we're going to be focusing on today. This is where we're looking at your hyper-local market and making adjustments to your rates on a daily basis based on the demand trends that we're seeing around you. We also offer portfolio analytics. Now, this is completely free for you to use. As we were developing our tools, we realized that a lot of property management systems have decent reporting, but it's really hard for a lot of property managers to visualize what their performance looks like. So portfolio analytics is your own data. We're pulling it from your PMS or connected account. It's completely free for you to use because we want you to sort of understand what's going on in your portfolio. Market dashboards is a more sort of market-based tool. So portfolio analytics is your data. Market dashboards is the market data. So if you are an investor, if you are a current property manager, this is a really great tool for you to use. You can create custom comp sets, and I'll get into that in a little bit. You can actually use those comp sets now in the dynamic pricing tool, or you can use it maybe when you're evaluating a potential deal that you might invest in. So like I was saying, our dynamic pricing tool, we're going to update your rates and your minimum stay on a daily basis for every day on your calendar based on the demand trends. So if you currently are just using sort of flat rates or going in once in a while, reacting to what you're seeing on your own calendar, you're potentially missing out on a lot of revenue. Ideally, Price Up is going to do two things for you. One, of course, the minimum stay, we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. Optimizing that can really help you fill your calendar more efficiently. But then two, during your high season, we really want to make sure that you are capturing peak revenue potential, capturing really high rates, and then being a little bit more competitive during that low season or low demand dates, making sure that you're actually getting the bookings, getting that occupancy that you need. We really want you to understand what's going on both in your own portfolio as well as in the market around you. So we give you actionable analytics so that you can optimize your reservation policies, and your revenue management strategy. So we'll hop into a couple of those as well in a minute. Today, we're really going over, like I was saying, some of our new features and some more advanced pricing strategies. The three kind of main new features that I want to highlight are our custom comp sets in neighborhood data, which is super cool. A lot of people don't actually know about that yet. We've got some new and improved minimum stay options. And then I didn't put it in this drop down, but if you're using date specific overrides, we're making that a lot easier for you to do as well. So that's actually where we're going to start, is date specific overrides. And I'm going to hop between this presentation and my demo account to kind of show you what I'm talking about. But the first thing that we did is allow you to copy overrides to future dates. That way you're not having to go in one by one and set those up. And then you can also specify repeating overrides by day of week, also really streamlining your setup. So let's take a look at what this looks like. Zoom is not letting me switch. There we go. Beautiful. So if you're a Price Labs user, this should look pretty familiar to you. This is your Price Labs dashboard. I'm going to go in and maybe choose Roxy's Ranch to show you exactly what I mean. So in Price Labs, you sort of have two different ways to control your pricing, right? We've got those customizations that you'll see here on the left-hand side of my screen. Those are basically tweaks to our algorithm. It's where you're making the algorithm your own. But then date-specific overrides are a little bit different. It's basically you saying these tweaks, this algorithm can sort of run as it will, but these specific dates, I want to do something different. Maybe it's a holiday, maybe there's a festival in town, maybe you just want to go in and sort of override pricing yourself, right? So to make a date specific override, you're going to click this add button on the right-hand side or just select on the calendar. Now I'm showing you this at the listing level, but you can set this up at the account level or groups if you're using those. So say on my calendar, I want to make sure that for November, just this year, not repeating year over year, I want to make sure that my Fridays and Saturdays have a different minimum price than maybe the rest of the year. Maybe we'll say Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, right? Right now, it's maybe a minimum of 100. I might have a seasonal minimum. It looks like I don't. But what I can do is actually select this entire month. Oh, no, I can't because I've got this date specific override here. There we go. Now I can select this entire month. Gotta love live demos. There we go. And I'm going to say my new minimum price for my Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays is going to be, I'll say $200 a night, right? Now, normally, before we made this update, you'd have to go in and one by one say Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But here, I can say my minimum price is 200. And then I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and we've got these new advanced override settings, right? And I'm going to only apply these settings to a specific day of the week. I only want that 200 minimum to apply to Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays during this date range that I've selected. Okay, and they're adding them now. You'll see them show up on my calendar here. Cool. Another thing that people brought up when we were, as we were making updates, something that people were giving us feedback about is that it's kind of annoying to have to go in for every holiday season for dates that are going to repeat year over year and set up these date specific overrides. So if I want my holiday season, we'll say from the 22nd through the 31st, I want that to repeat. I'm going to have a different minimum price. We'll say $500 a night, for example. I can then also go down into my advanced override settings and add date ranges here. So I can say, let's maybe do next holiday season as well. We'll say 22nd through the 30th, and then even the year after that and the year after that. Now, what's nice about this is that dates like Thanksgiving, Labor Day, Memorial Day, holidays in your area that are going to have a different sort of date every year, you can actually choose the range. You don't have to say, Memorial Day this year, if it's on September 5th, it's not going to be on September 5th next year. So that's why we created this copy to date range feature, which should really sort of help your streamlining when you're setting things up. Now, that's probably the most boring feature that we're going to go over today. Hopefully it's useful though. The next one I'm super excited about. Now you can create custom comp sets using our market dashboard feature and actually import them into your neighborhood data. So feedback that we've gotten a lot, again, we're going to come into this demo account here. I'm going to look at my neighborhood data. Now, by default, up until we made this change, the data that we're seeing on this page is more or less the data that is running our algorithm, right? So we're looking at the 300 or so closest listings to you and then displaying their data here. Of course, you can always filter by the bedrooms to ensure that we're looking at, more specific listings around you. So for example, I've got a 2-bedroom here. I'm just looking at the 2 bedrooms around me. I can see exactly of those 2 bedrooms, what the range and pricing is, what their occupancy looks like, things like that. But it's a really sort of general range of listings. We're not really taking into account, quality, if they're pet friendly, what their minimum stay is, things like that. So we're picking up a range of listings because it's important to sort of get that range when you're analyzing for market demand. But when you are trying to benchmark yourself against your competition, you probably want to pay a little bit more attention to like which listings are your competitors, right? So now, if you use market dashboards, you can click on this little square, and instead of choosing your nearby listings, you will click market dashboards, select the market dashboard that you want to apply. And then within market dashboards, you can actually create very specific comp sets. So if I want professionally managed 2 bedrooms around me or 3 bedrooms that are riverfront that allow pets, then I can select those. And then you will see those hand-picked listings, pricing ranges, and occupancy compared to mine, which is pretty neat. If we have time at the end, I can kind of go in more into market dashboards and show you all how you're actually going to create those comp sets, because sometimes there are questions about that. I do see there's a chat. Any questions so far?
Nope, all good. You keep rocking.
Okay, cool. Next thing that we did is we really improved our minimum stay setup, right? So before, you had to sort of set either a specific minimum stay for an individual listing, a group, or your account. We've introduced minimum stay profiles to really streamline your setup, avoid human error, and allow you to get really, really specific with your minimum stay strategy. So I'm a huge fan of minimum stay. I think a lot of people think of pricing when they're thinking of revenue management, right? So raising your rates, lowering your rates, but minimum stay often gets overlooked, right? So when you're thinking about your revenue management strategy, I challenge all of you to think about your minimum stay and use that as a tool in your pocket, right? So if you currently have, say, a 2-night minimum for dates that are available for booking like 6 months from now, you are potentially missing out. If you allow a 2-night stay to block a weekend where there might be demand for 4- and 5-night stays really far in advance, then you're missing out on a potential longer stay there. So we typically recommend a cascading minimum, but that can change throughout the year. So if you go to your dynamic pricing menu at the top, go down to customizations, and then click on minimum stay profiles, you'll be able to create specific profiles for different seasons, for different types of properties, and really, really get granular with how you're setting these minimum stay strategies up. For example, I have this midterm rental strategy that is really in depth. It's got a ton of different layers. It's using some of our really advanced adjacent day settings. So if you are not currently using minimum stay profiles, I definitely recommend it, right? So how are we doing on time? Yeah, I'll get into this a little bit more. Another thing that we did before we had this update, you only really had one level of setting, right? So a last minute booking was a last minute booking. Now you can get, again, really granular. I can drop down from maybe a 5-night to a 4-night to a 3-night to a 2-night within different ranges of check-in, right? And of course, these ranges, your booking windows might change throughout the year. So that's why it might be important for you to look at that data and then create these profiles seasonally. Say you want to treat your gaps differently based on the length of the gap. Maybe I have a minimum of 2 nights. I never want to go below 2. I can say for gaps of 2 and 3 nights, I'm just going to allow a 2-night minimum. But for gaps of say 4 to 6 nights, I am okay with length of gap -2. So being a little bit more flexible with my longer gaps than with my shorter gaps. We also have some more advanced features that we released. So lowest minimum stay allowed, that's pretty self-explanatory. If you have like a listing that has like a 7-night minimum because of your HOA or because of rules in your town or a specific owner that just doesn't want shorter stays, you can set that here. And that way, if you accidentally set a date specific override with a shorter minimum, this will always override that. Adjacent day before and after booking are really neat, a little bit confusing, but I think it's important to kind of show you all how to use these. Essentially, you can, hold on, my computer is, okay, there we go. Essentially, you can use adjacent day before and after to make your calendar a little bit more flexible. So I'm actually going to show you on one of the listings how this works. We're going to look at this one. Now I currently have, we'll say, we'll get rid of all these. This is the one that I always use this listing for. So we'll say that this listing normally has a 7-night minimum all year long, right? What happens then if we're looking at, so we've got a reservation coming in on the 1st, for example. The only time somebody can book before this reservation, because I have this 7-night minimum, is after the 25th or before the 25th, right? You can't check in on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday because I have that 7-night minimum. This is a 6-night stay or a 4-night stay. So you can use those adjacent day rules to actually open up your calendar a little bit, be a little bit more flexible, as long as they're not really creating large gaps in your calendar. So I'm going to go to more advanced stays. I'm going to do adjacent before booking. I'm going to say, if you check in 2 days before another booking, you can stay 2 nights. If you check in, we'll say 4 days before another booking, you can stay 3 nights. If you check in 6 days before another booking, you can stay 6 nights. Changes. So now you're going to see that's essentially just making my policy a little bit more flexible, making it so if somebody does want to book a shorter stay, it's not necessarily going to affect my my calendar because it won't be a very large gap, but it's just allowing more dates to potentially be booked for you to show up in more search results, right? So kind of a neat feature, a little bit more advanced, but that is one that we just came out with a couple months ago. Now, this might be completely overwhelming to you, and that's something that a lot of our users said. They said this cascading minimum thing, having a longer stay far out, shorter stay, more flexible stays close in, that's really great, but how the heck am I supposed to set this up? So we actually were the first to introduce a minimum stay recommendation engine. So for every single one of your listings, we're going to actually look at the data from listings around you. When are they being booked? How long are people staying for, and actually coming up with a recommendation for you. So if you go to your listing, you'll see the stay restrictions, and this little light bulb says stay setting suggestion available. And then you can either choose to prefer short term, which is less than 14 nights, or midterm, more than 14 nights. And then we're going to analyze again all those bookings around you and suggest a cascading minimum based on the market data. So in this case, this listing is recommending that on normally default, we're going to have a 2-night minimum. Last minute, we're going to drop it down to 1 night within 6 days. And then this one's a little bit funny, but far out, we're actually going to have a 2-night minimum also. Not a great example. This is Las Vegas market. It's a little bit weekend heavy, but definitely check it out. What's neat about those is that, say I don't want to ever allow one night stays, I can say apply and customize. And then there's two ways to do it. I like to recommend that if you see a 1 and you don't ever want to allow one night stays, just change them to 2 or whatever your preferred minimum is, or you can go in and delete it. You can also go in and say, hey, maybe this is a little bit extreme for me. Let's raise it from 90 to 180. So you can customize it, but it's a good place to start if you're really unsure of what your, cascading minimum should look like. Cool. Okay, so finally, just a couple of advanced customizations that I just wanted to go over. If you're not already using them, you definitely can. The first is going to be those custom seasonal profiles. Now, these aren't new, but I like to mention them for 2 reasons. One, it's probably the most misused feature that we have, so I like to point it out just so you aren't making a very common mistake. And 2, this is where you're going to assign those minimum stay profiles if you want them to apply seasonally. So again, I'm looking at this at the listing level, but you can apply this account or group levels. So I'm going to go to customizations, go down to minimum prices or seasonal and minimum prices. And then this first option here is your custom seasonal profile. You can turn this on and click edit and then add different seasons. Now there's 2 options. You can do fixed or percentage. That's going to say, am I going to have a different minimum price, like $200 for this season? Or should we calculate the minimum off of the minimum that you've set here, which would be like, if I do a percentage, that would be 100% if I want to get to, around 200. So you can also set those minimum stay profiles right here. Now, I mentioned a mistake that a lot of people do, and that is messing with the base price in this area. So we are actually already calculating seasons based on your market. We are looking at historic trends and current trends to say, what does occupancy look like? What does demand look like around you? And we're raising and lowering your prices based on that. Now, you do not, even though we have a base price box here, it does not mean that you have to put a base price in the box. I would actually recommend against it unless you're trying to change up your strategy for a specific season. So normally, say I have a base price of 150 and I want my high season. I'm like, okay, I know that my prices in my high season should be double. Let's select my high season, and I'm just making something random, and I'm going to say my base price isn't going to be 150 for my high season, it's going to be 300. Essentially what this is going to do is it's going to double your prices for this time of year, causing your prices to probably be a little bit too inflated. So it's okay to use your seasonal profile to make slight adjustments to your seasons, but I would very much recommend against going in there and just, doubling your base price, dropping it in half. Okay, I've got some kind of crazy settings here. So it looks like hitting my maximum for that sort of time period that I had suggested. So let's take a look visually how this is going to play out. Cool. So you'll see that my pricing is pretty consistent here. And then for that summer or high season that I suggested, prices get really, really high. This isn't the best example. It's not a very seasonal market. But again, so if you're going to use a seasonal profile, I would just use it to adjust your minimum price and maybe make slight adjustments, maybe between 10-20% max for that base price. And that's only if you want to change up your strategies for different seasons, but also a really great place to assign those minimum stay profiles. Next, we have demand factor aggressiveness. Now, this is one of my favorite features. Let me look at a different one. I think, okay, cool. So we're going to look at this neighborhood data calendar again. And it will load eventually. So the demand factor essentially is telling our system that what the demand looks like for certain days on your calendar. It's going to identify basically the peaks and the valleys, right? So high demand dates might be like Christmas, New Year's, if there is a graduation near you or a concert series that's announced, that's going to show up in the demand, and that's going to cause your prices to be raised. Now, the demand factor is a little bit flexible. By default, the recommended factor is going to apply, right? So this is an example that I used for the seasonal profile. That's why it looks so funny. So let's zoom in here. We're gonna kind of look at maybe some high demand events. Currently, an aggressive demand factor is being applied to this listing. So that means that we're kind of going above and beyond. So let's look at December 31st, for example. Currently, with a aggressive demand factor, or a really, I guess a demand factor for those who might be risk averse, we are recommending a price of $226. Now, if we drop this, I'm going to go into edit, go down to advanced customizations. We've got our demand factor here. We're going to go to recommended, save changes. This is going to sort of drop our recommended prices down for those high demand events, events, dates, what have you. So if we look at the 31st again, I'm going to guess that it's going to be a little bit lower. So it's dropped a little bit here. So yep, so now from 226, we're now recommending 176. So 176, this recommended demand factor, if you change it to aggressive, it's going to raise your prices for those peaks on your calendar. Now, if you're looking at your calendar and you're new to dynamic pricing, or you have a listing that's maybe a more budget accommodation and you don't think that it can really handle those peaks that you're seeing or those high prices, conservative might be a better option for you. So I'm going to do that. And we were at 176 for the recommended. And let's see how this changes it. And it will load. There we go. And I mean, you can really see how it's changing things out here, but let's zoom back into the 31st again. Perfect. So now from that 176, we've dropped down to 133 with this conservative factor. So if you're looking at your calendar and you're concerned about the peaks or those high demand dates, whether we're pricing it too low for your liking or we're pricing it too high for your liking, the demand factor is kind of an easy adjustment that you can do to ensure that we're pricing correctly for your portfolio. Next, I know we're kind of running up on time, so I will go through this rather quickly, is you can now exclude weekends from Orphan Day discounts. So up until we made this change, Orphan discounts included weekdays and weekends, sort of regardless of whether you are using our default setting or if you are making a setting up yourself. So again, going to the customizations panel, under this general setting, you see that I have Orphan Day prices turned on. Now, Orphan Days are gaps in your calendar. By default, if you have this like turned off, the default is going to apply, and we're looking for gaps of 1 or 2 nights and discounting by 20%. And that's regardless of it being a weekday or a weekend, which by default we consider Fridays and Saturdays. Now, you can turn this on and then just enter 20% discount 2 days or less, and then just uncheck this apply on weekend box. If you are noticing though that your weekends are filling in and then you have these gaps sort of midweek that are really hard to fill, you can actually go one step further and adjust this so that we're identifying any midweek gap and dropping it down. So you can actually adjust this from 2 nights up to like 4 or 5 nights, and then just make sure that this apply on weekend is unchecked. This way, if you have like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday gap, we're noticing, hey, that's going to be a little bit harder to fill. There isn't a lot of maybe weekday demand in my area. Let's just automatically drop prices down, right? So this is a really kind of neat way to apply this, this setting. Cool. So I do have a couple more that I had, but I think that we might be running up on.
No, you take your time. We want you to hit everything that you feel is necessary. So no worries. It's all the time in the world.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. So yeah, two more that I just think are super key, super important. I consider these sort of like Price Labs Pro. If you, if you've kind of done everything that I've talked about so far and you're just looking to get a little bit more out of the tool, our occupancy-based adjustments are kind of, in my opinion, like the coolest part. So essentially, and especially this time of year when we're kind of maybe in a shoulder season or off season, I think this is really important. So when your occupancy is maybe not where you want it to be, you have a couple of different tools in Price Labs, right? You can drop your base price, and that's going to lower all of your prices throughout the entire year, which you might not want to do, right? You might want to just say, hey, I want to be a little bit more aggressive right now, but I don't want my next summer to be affected. You can also come in here and say, hey, let's just discount all of November by 20%. Which is great, but if you start to book up, you're still giving that same 20% discount. Now, with the occupancy-based adjustments, this is kind of a really neat tool. By default, we are already doing this, but you can tweak it to your needs, right? So I'm going to turn this occupancy-based adjustment on and click Edit Profile, and this will actually show you what we're doing by default. So we're looking at each of your listings individually and calculating occupancy based on these different day ranges or booking windows, essentially. Say 0 to 15 days from now, I have 0 bookings over the next 2 weeks. That is less than 10% occupancy. We are automatically applying a 15% discount to your rates. Say 31 to 60 days from now, the same listing is just doing really, really well. I've got over 80% occupancy. I guess that would be like for December. We're going to raise any open dates prices by 10%. Cool. So if you have a listing that's struggling, we do have a couple of sort of other profiles for you to check out. The aggressive profile is a really good place to start. It's more aggressive sort of on both ends. So I'll kind of switch back and forth. So the default, again, 15% is sort of the maximum discount we're giving last minute. With aggressive, we'll drop prices up to 30%. If you have no bookings over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be really aggressive about it. If you're booking up really fast, we're also going to be raising your prices more aggressively. The third one is coronavirus, which we developed during the pandemic. We should probably change the name of it though. Gives people flashbacks. Here you'll see very, very aggressive discounting last minute, and we're not actually raising your prices if you start to book up further in advance. This one might be good if you do have like midterm renters coming in where you actually look like you have high occupancy on your calendar far out. You might want to use either the coronavirus or modify one of these profiles so you're not really raising your prices because of that. Now, like I was saying, this is completely customizable. So if you have maybe a property that you like booking up even further in advance than 60 days, then by all means, add more day ranges, right? If I'm not already 30% booked 61 to 90 days from now, maybe let's start to discount prices here. Now, not everybody has to do this, but if you're looking for a little bit more, or if you're noticing that you're going in, adjusting your base price down a lot, making date specific overrides, adjusting your prices a lot, this is a really good way to sort of automate what you're probably just doing intuitively, right? Now, for our larger operators out there, there's a second option too, right? So the one I just showed you is the occupancy-based adjustment for your individual listings, right? Now, if you have multiple listings in a market and you want to adjust your prices based on how sort of your portfolio is doing or a subsection of your portfolio, then you can use our portfolio occupancy-based adjustments. That can only be accessed through groups. So I'm going to go to my customizations page and I'm going to go to groups. And then I turned all my listings off. Normally on this calendar, you'll see it says no listings are syncing in this group. Normally you would see actually percentages on this calendar of how many, say I've got 10 listings in this group. If 5 out of 10 are booked on the 16th, you would see a little 50% here. Now the portfolio occupancy based adjustments are essentially raising and lowering your prices based off of that information. So which days on my calendar are booking up faster when we're taking, all the listings in this group into account. So I'll click edit here, go down to advanced customizations, and then I've got the portfolio occupancy based adjustments here. If I click edit again, it's going to look very similar. It just applies a little bit differently. Again, instead of calculating based on the range, I'm looking at, or the system is looking at every individual day in this range and saying how many of the units in this group are booked for this date, right? If it's 5 units out of 10, that's going to be 50%. We're looking at over the next 4 days, we're going to drop prices by 10%. Now, this is nice. When I was a property manager, I actually didn't use this feature, and I wish that I had known about it. Like if I had a bunch of oceanfront villas, for example, or I guess lakefront villas, and all of a sudden, 6 months in advance, I'm like, oh, shoot, all of my villas are booked up for Labor Day already. This is going to work as a guardrail for that. If all of my villas start to book up for a specific date really far in advance, this is going to kick in and just automatically bump up the price, or say, hey, that date isn't booking up, we'll lower the price as those dates get closer. So yeah, that's about all I have for y'all today. If you have questions, you can always reach out to us at support@pricelabs.co, or just ask them now, because I am all yours.
Yes, I have lots of questions. First of all, thank you. Bravo. Wonderful job. We're huge fans, and we've been with Price Labs since the day one, basically. And most of our clients are using you. I mean, it's got to be 90+% that are using you. So you this is not a sales pitch in any way. We're already on board, all of us. And,
love it.
And thank you. I mean, I've been doing short-term since way before any of this stuff existed. You had to price every single night on Airbnb and Vrbo independently, and it was a nightmare. So it sounds like you know exactly what that's like. And thank you so much for improving our lives and cracking whatever you had to crack to get the integration with Airbnb and Vrbo. I'm sure that was not an easy task in the early days.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I guess my first question here for me, we have a lot of questions from folks that are listening too, and Avery will be back in just a second. But my question is, how do you? Because I mean, bravo, fantastic presentation. But what if I'm brand new? I've never rented a house in my life, and I'm just starting with this, and everything you just said like completely blew my mind, and I don't know what to do. Okay. How do I know what numbers to put in there? Like I'm brand new, totally clueless.
Yeah. So if you're brand new, totally clueless, my biggest advice is just start simply. Our algorithm right out of the box works very well. We have one of the largest data science teams sort of in the industry that just focuses on making our algorithm better. So it should work just fine for you, right? You can join me in I do a 201 webinar every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, where we kind of go through each of those a little bit more sort of in depth, a little bit slower, talk about strategy. But by all means, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see when doing like account management calls is people start off and they turn all of the buttons and levers on. And you don't need to do that. A lot of the times we end up saying, hey, let's turn some of this off. And then the pricing ends up looking a lot better.
Yes, I agree. I'll be honest, I don't even use a whole lot of the settings. And I think a lot of times when I'm showing folks, kind of how to do what we do, they're like staring at my settings, and I'm like, first of all, I don't use a lot of them.
Yeah.
I think Price Labs does a great job on its own without all the settings, quite frankly. And then also I change them so often anyway. That's another thing. Like to me, how much of it is, how much of the important factor is, just getting in here and kind of knowing how to do things versus like, how much time do I have to spend is what I'm getting at to effectively price a single family home, 5 bedrooms or something.
Yeah. I mean, I will say whether you are, a professional property manager, if you're just getting into it, use the time that you have. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed and feel like I have to spend like 3 hours a week in Price Labs. You know, use what you have. You should be paying attention to what your reservation activity looks like. You should be paying attention to how your occupancy looks, and just add Price Labs sort of into that workflow organically. When you first get started, I would recommend spending a little bit more time. That way you can actually get used to the system and feel comfortable adding it to your workflow. But long term, you know, you shouldn't be sort of babysitting it. Ideally, you know, as you notice that you have to make changes, as you notice, you know, you might want to override some dates, that's when you should maybe join me for one of those webinars and say, hey, how do I automate this thing that has become sort of a manual thing that I've had to consistently do over and over again?
Okay, cool. Let's go to the guys. If you want to start posting more questions in the chat, if we have any, we don't want to take too much of Becca's time. She's fantastic, and of course, you guys have your own YouTube channel as well. If you want to plug that, plenty of videos in there, so you can find Price Labs on YouTube. Okay, so if we don't want to use customizations, wait a minute. Then all we adjust is how often do we recommend? Yeah. How often do you recommend tweaking these numbers based on what percentage of listing health?
Good question. Sure. Okay. Yeah. So I can actually kind of dive here. Do you mind if I share my screen again? I can kind of show what I think they mean. There we go. So, the listing health is something that is going to show you your listing's occupancy relative to other listings around you. By default, it's going to be 7, 30, 60 days. You can adjust it for whatever day ranges you see fit. Hopefully all of your listings look a little healthier than mine. I have not put fake reservations in my demo account in a while, so all of my numbers are basically showing 0% occupancy. That's why they're showing red, because I'm pacing behind the market. For example, this market is showing 26% occupancy over the next 30 days, whereas my listing is 0%. Now, a workflow that I see pretty commonly is you can actually sort by this. So you can actually, if you have multiple listings in your account and you just want to focus on the ones that need a little love, then sort by this. All the sort of low performing listings will show up at the top. If you're seeing red, that could potentially, if it's not a brand new listing, or if there's not a reason that, like, maybe you had the dates blocked, that typically is a red flag for me, right? I would say maybe go in and adjust that base price, let it sit for like a week or two, and then reevaluate, right? Of course, your goals, so there's going to be a range of colors: red, yellow, green, and blue. Your goals for your listings might be different than somebody else, even within the same sort of like mastermind group, right? If you have a listing where you're really striving for a higher ADR and maybe lower occupancy, you might be trying to get, you know, yellows and greens. So pacing on par with the market, maybe a little bit behind in occupancy, because you are charging a higher daily rate. If you're just heads in beds, you want 100% occupancy all around, your goal might be more in the blue and green range. But generally speaking, red is something that you kind of want to avoid. And then, yeah, go in, click, help me choose a base price. And we'll actually even suggest a new base price for you. We'll say, hey, you aren't booking up as much as the rest of the market. Let's maybe drop your base price a little bit here. Hopefully that answered that.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, go ahead, Avery. Sorry.
Oh yeah, we've got a ton of stuff here. Does setting minimum night stay profiles overwrite any custom date changes I've set? For example, if I've set custom settings for the week of Christmas, I don't want these minimum night stay profiles to overwrite those. Yeah, so a date specific override is going to trump your minimum stay profile. So if you have set, 7 nights for over Christmas, but your minimum stay profile says like 4 nights for December, that override, those date specific override is going to win out. The only time a minimum stay profile is going to win out is if you use that lowest min stay setting that I showed you. If this one should never be less than 30 nights, that one's going to trump the date specific overrides. Sorry, I don't know why. Based on the word there. Okay, and while we're on the subject of Christmas, this has come up several times. How do I prevent someone from checking in or out on a certain day like Christmas? Because a lot of cleaners won't clean on Christmas or Thanksgiving. So how do you prevent that?
It depends on the PMS or account you're connected to. So with a lot of PMSs, we do control check-in, check-out restrictions. With Verbo, we control check-in, check-out. Airbnb, we just control check-in. I'm connected to Lodgify, which is a PMS. It does not allow check-in, check-out restrictions. You can set those within the PMS yourself. If your PMS or connected account does allow it, under stay restrictions, under minimum stay, you're going to see basically a section for check-in, check-out restrictions. You can kind of get around it by doing kind of crazy date specific overrides, where I'm going to say like 20 nights if you're going to, check in on Christmas or something like that. It's not the prettiest way to do it. I'm not sharing my screen. I was just doing it on my screen. I just realized, but yeah, it's not the prettiest way to do it. You can like somewhat control it via date specific overrides. But more ideally, you can usually set it within your PMS if you're not able to update it in Price Labs.
Awesome. I didn't know if that was going to be a Price Labs thing or a property management software thing. So.
Yeah, it depends on the different softwares, what they allow us to control in that.
Okay.
And sometimes that may need to come directly from Airbnb and Verbo, right? Like as a rule set.
Again, it depends on your PMS's connection with Airbnb and Verbo. It might not be, like I said, like if you're connecting Price Labs directly to Airbnb, we can control check-in, but we can't control check-out restrictions for some reason. On Verbo, we can control both.
All right. Let's see. There's another one. Are you guys available in European markets or just US?
Oh yeah, we're worldwide. We've got a pretty good sized European team too. So if you ever need support, we're there.
Okay. There's one that I keep reading that I'm gonna ask next, and then I keep losing it. Okay, here it is. How do we offer to like book 3 nights and get 1 night free or something like that? Is there a way to do that?
So sort of. Again, it depends on your PMS. We have this great option. It's called length of stay pricing, where you can basically say kind of in both ways. If you're going to book a longer stay, you get discounts. If you're going to book a shorter stay, maybe you have to pay a little bit more. Currently, Rentals United and Stays, I think they're a Brazilian PMS, are the only two that currently allow us to do that. There are, I want to say 3 or 4 more on our list that are going to start having that ability pretty soon. But that's definitely one of sort of the most asked for features. If it's something that you're interested, write to your PMS and let them know that, it'd be very valuable for you. Otherwise you can set, promotions, things like that outside of Price Labs. Think of Price Labs as getting your daily rates optimized for demand. And then there's other things like your marketing that you're going to have to think about. If you are working with Airbnb directly and you can set a promotion where they're going to put you in like email marketing, that's not really optimizing your price for demand. That's optimizing or almost paying for marketing from Airbnb essentially. So keep both in mind for sure.
Excellent
All
point.
right. Yes. Okay. When I try to set up a specific price for certain dates, it allows me to put either a fixed price or a minimum and maximum price. If I use the min max option, does it mean that the price will automatically fluctuate based on demand within that range?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. If you use a fixed price, we're not going to change it. We're not going to go above it, below it. That's just, the price that you've set. By adjusting your min and max is adjusting the range that we're able to operate within. The third option is there's like a little drop down. So where you can set a fixed price, if you click where it says fixed, you can change it to % on recommended. So if you just want to raise our recommended price by like 10%, but still have it fluctuate, then I would recommend doing the the percent change on recommended price. Sorry, I haven't had my coffee today.
Luke, do you have anything else? There's not really any more questions in the chat. Do you have anything specific that you think people need to hear, questions that we get all the time?
No, she crushed it. I mean, how do I, yeah, great job. I guess the only thing how do I avoid driving myself crazy with all these settings and customizations? And because I see that all the time where people are like, oh my God, there's so much stuff. I have to fill in all these gaps. And you already mentioned you don't have to do that, but you have any, I guess, psychological advice?
No, it's crazy. And I think it's something that we'll probably address just as like a company in the coming year. I think we were just at Verma International. It's a big sort of short-term rental convention that happens every year. And I would say most of our users that came up to us said, we absolutely love you. Things are going great, but I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like I'm not doing enough. And I think addressing that concern is definitely important, because as long as you're, performing the way you want to, then you're doing enough, if there are problems, if you're starting to see, your occupancy waning, or you're starting to get nervous about your own market, join our webinars. We're really trying to make ourselves accessible to you. We want you to feel like you're confident in using our tools. So if you're unsure of what a setting means or what it should do, reach out to us. We're more than happy to help kind of reassure you that things are going okay, or guide you if we think that there's something that you could be doing better.
Talk to me about my calendar not being as full as I want it to be. A lot of people are actually asking that question right now, which I know that's not necessarily your job, right? Like, because it could be anything. Maybe your house isn't decorated right.
Exactly.
Maybe it's your off season.
Yeah.
Maybe you're new and you don't realize that the beach is empty in November. So but talk to me about best practices to just make sure I'm getting as much money as possible. How do I get this calendar as full as possible?
Yeah, I would say competition is fierce now. 2020, 2021, even some people are saying 2022 has been their best year ever, but there are a lot of hosts out there that aren't seeing that. There's a lot of people that have purchased homes in the past 2 years at the top of the market, both vacation rental wise and real estate wise, and they're getting a little bit nervous seeing, less than full calendars this fall, this winter. The main advice I would say is, if you want to really get into your revenue management strategy, pay attention to the booking windows in your area. When are people booking? How far in advance are reservations actually being made around you? So that when it's, 2 weeks out, if you're saying, shoot, I don't have any bookings on my calendar these next 2 weeks. If nobody is really booking for the next 2 weeks, you're going to have to really, really drop your prices. If you had been paying attention to your booking window, when people were actually booking, you could have made sure that your prices were competitive then, instead of having to really drop and react now. We will probably be doing a market dashboards webinar, probably in the coming month. So, if you are getting our emails, pay attention to those. Definitely sign up for that, because we'll really go into how to use the market dashboards to analyze your market. Additionally, I did a webinar. It's kind of two-part because we had some technical difficulties. I did a 7 strategies to prepare for like a downturn in the market. You can find that on our YouTube channel. It goes into sort of analyzing booking window and maybe tweaking things if you're seeing or getting nervous about your calendar.
Awesome.
Love it. We're running on about an hour right now, so I don't have anything else. Avery, you want to?
I don't have anything else. No, but thank you, Becca, so much for coming on.
Well,
I know I know our community is going to get so much value out of this, and we really, really appreciate it. And do you want to let everybody know how to find your weekly webinar again? Somebody asked that in the chat.
Yeah. If you go to hello.pricelabs.co, that's sort of like our main website. Under, I believe, resources, there should be like a training section. It's the 201 webinar. It's every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, and I can send y'all a link if you want, so that y'all sign up after this. Yeah.
Awesome.
Bravo, bravo.
Yeah,
One more thing. I do see a lot of folks, especially noobs, they come in and they're like, well, I hooked up my Price Labs and I'm not getting any bookings. So I've been preaching on this for a long time, but can you preach on the fact that just because you're hooked to Price Labs does not mean your job is done? Like you got to do some stuff.
Yeah,
help
you still want to
me.
be involved, Price Labs is very smart, but at the end of the day, it is just an algorithm, and what makes sort of your pricing strategy special is you. So make sure that your base price is where it needs to be. Use the neighborhood data to actually see where your pricing sits next to your competition, especially if you're brand new. Usually you might want to start a little bit more on the low end of pricing. You want your first couple months online to be really strong. So you can always build up to those really, really high rates, but maybe initially you want to be a little bit more aggressive in the discounting and things like that.
Actually, before you leave, I know we're already like on our way out, but really good question that was pointed out to me on text. She said, can of worms question here. Are we concerned about Airbnb omitting cleaning fees / merging fees into our rates? And how do you foresee this affecting our pricing tools?
So I think that I honestly, I think it's a great thing that they've done. I think that Airbnbs in general, we're kind of suffering from like an identity crisis almost. I was seeing a lot on social media where people were just kind of complaining about the cleaning fee. So hopefully this is going to be a good thing. In market dashboards, you can actually scroll all the way to the bottom. You can look at similar listings and make sure that your cleaning fee is also competitive. I know maybe it's not as flexible if it's going straight to like your cleaning lady, but especially in your off season, if you are charging a way higher cleaning fee than everybody else in your market, you can have the lowest daily rate possible, and it's going to make you really uncompetitive quickly. So this just sort of emphasizes that you just need to pay attention to your fees in addition to your daily rates. Revenue management isn't just one thing. It's kind of a broad spectrum.
I've said it a million times. This is the most important part of the gig when it comes to, renting any kind of property. Forget about long-term, short-term, long-term, whatever, multifamily, storage units. The most important part is the pricing. And again, Short-Term Shop is not affiliated with Price Labs in any way. And I say that because I'm a massive fan and I'm going to kiss your ass. We love Price Labs. It has made my life so much easier, and it works perfectly with my brain. So thank you. And Avery, I'll let you take it out.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. And if you're interested in buying a house with the Short-Term Shop so that you can then use Price Labs, which you just learned how to use, email us at agents@theshorttermshop.com and we'll be happy to help you find one. See ya.
All right, thanks so much.